hello, and welcome to MarshStream, your performance broadcast platform. I'm Stephanie Wiseman, Artistic Director and founder of The Marsh and MarshStream, and thank you for joining us tonight for Stephanie's MarshStream featuring Grant Faulkner. But first, please consider supporting MarshStream and its artists with a tax-deductible donation to the tip jar, or join our membership program. Tonight's tips are matched. Please subscribe to the Marsh's YouTube channel and be notified when all our shows go live. You can see our archive shows at themarsh.org. Now I'd like to welcome Grant Faulkner. Grant Faulkner is the Executive Director of the National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, and the co-founder of the 100-Word Story. He has published 2 books on writing, Pep Talks for Writers, 52 Insights and Actions to Boost Your Creative Mojo, and Brave the Page, a teen writing guide. He's also published a collection of 100-word stories, Fissures, and Nothing Short of 100. Hello, Grant. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Stephanie, you got NaNoWriMo pronounced right. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Let's see if I have to. This way, I'm not doing it again because, good luck with one. I'm not going to even try it again. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. This will be fun. We have a history.
Yes, we do. Oh, you want to start? Let's start with our history.
Should we start with our history?
Let's start with that.
Way back in 1991, I believe, maybe 1990. It was 1990. My now wife Heather Mackey and I went to a Josh Kornbluth show. It wasn't bingo. It was a monologue, and I can't remember the name of it now. But anyway, the Marsh used to be in the back of Cafe Beano, and that was our second date.
So their second date was actually Josh Kornbluth's Haiku Tunnel. That's because that was our first full-length show. So you were there for our first full-length show.
I did not know that, and here we are, decades later.
Yeah, so that's like what? That was 90. So what's that? 30 years now later, right?
Yeah.
And you married Heather, and you had children, and then what? How did you get to be the executive director of NaNoWriMo? Look at that.
Yeah, it's kind of a long and winding story. There's 2 parts of it. One is the writer side of myself, and the other is the nonprofit side of myself. And so the writer side, basically, I woke up one day and I said, did my creative process find me, or did I choose and develop my creative process? I was like, why do I write the way I write? And I'd been working on, probably a couple novels up to that point. And what was interesting to me was that I would rewrite the first chapter over and over again, keep tweaking it, keep revising it, with this need to get it perfect before moving on. And so I was, kind of a ponderous and slow writer, and sort of precious and looking for perfection. But what I found happened is that I was putting so much work at the front end of the novel and less work at the later on. And so it was harder to develop a novel also because I was moving so slowly. And so I knew Chris Beatty was an acquaintance. Chris Beatty is the founder of NaNoWriMo. And just for people who don't know, NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month has a challenge to write 50,000 words of a novel in a month. So the emphasis is on progress. You don't tweak a sentence over and over again. You try to move to the end and get through a whole novel and explore it. And now I think of this as like my discovery draft. That's what I call it. I don't even call it a first draft. It's just a discovery draft. And I thought that this was a great process when I tried it out. And one thing that's great about it, and I'm going to quote Carol Oates here, is that she says, you don't know the first sentence of your novel until you've written the last sentence. And that was really enlightened to me, because what happens with that first chapter that I spent so much time on, inevitably it gets cut or a lot of it gets changed. It doesn't need to be perfect. And so I write with less of a sense of perfection now, more of a sense of just like exploring the topic in a first draft, and then you go back and you perfect it later, you revise it later, you kind of find the story later too. That all happens in revision. And then the other part of my path to NaNoWriMo is that I was working at the National Writing Project, which is a nonprofit here in Berkeley dedicated to helping teachers teach writing better across the nation. And I was, after I had this experience writing in NaNoWriMo, I reached out to Chris Beatty, the founder, and asked him if he knew of any nonprofits in the Bay Area, arts nonprofits that needed board members. And, we met, we talked, and he invited me to be on his board. And then when I joined the board, he said, by the way, I'm stepping down and you should apply for my job. So I was honored enough to be on the board, to tell you the truth. And I never really thought of myself as an executive director. So it was quite a leap for me, but it's been a wonderful job. I've kind of found my professional home with NaNoWriMo.
Wow. So what year was that?
I took over in 2012. So I've been there for 8 years now. Yeah. I joined the board in 2011. I was on the board for about a year before taking over. Yeah.
And well, just, as one executive director to another executive director here. So how did you keep your art going during those years when you obviously have, well, what's happened since 2012? Has it grown? What was it like in 2012? What is it like now at 2020?
Yeah. So it has grown. I think it started out when Chris Beatty started it in 1999. He just wanted to write a novel with friends and have some fun. He didn't plan on it becoming this creative phenomena that it is, or a nonprofit. But he did it with 20 friends the first year, and then 150 friends showed up the next year, and then they put up this kind of rudimentary website the third year, and 5,000 people showed up. And the New York Times was writing about them, and Los Angeles Times, and then it's grown. We now have about 500,000 writers in all of our programs, 300,000 in National Novel Writing Month writing right now, and about 100,000 kids and teens in our Young Writers program. And then we have year-round programming. We have a variety of writing events throughout the year that we continue to grow. So we're not just a month, we're not just an event, we're largely a writing community. That's the way I think of ourselves. Like the challenge of National Novel Writing Month, it's one part writing boot camp where you learn the discipline of showing up and creating inspiration for yourself to write a novel. And then it's one part rollicking writing party. And that's the community aspect that we provide people in a number of ways.
Tell us how you make it a rollicking writing party. I want to hear that.
Yeah. Well, we go to places like the Marsh, and like a place like the Marsh might host what we call a write-in. And we have like 900 municipal liaisons, volunteers, and they're around the world. And they're in places like Des Moines and Tulsa. And they organize these writing gatherings throughout the month of November. And actually, most of them are doing it year-round at this point. So they'll gather in September and October to help plan novels. Then you get together and write during November. Then we have a revision program in January and February. So there's that in-person aspect where you can come. I mean, I think community is good for a writer in a number of ways, whether it's just having somebody who has a similar experience to you. It's kind of like going to war with somebody writing a novel. It's a very unique and interesting experience. So it's nice to share it with somebody. And, I think also like NaNoWriMo encourages collaboration. And the community also provides a layer of accountability as well, because people have expectations that you will show up and write with them, or that you will hit your goal, your word count. So the community functions in a lot of different ways. But then we have a really vibrant online community too. Like in our forums right now on our website, we'll get about 1 million posts this month about every possible writing topic under the sun. And of course, we're on social media and we do all sorts of things. Like we host NaNoWriMo word sprints. We might do a word sprint tonight. That's on Twitter, and they're around the clock in the month of November. Our volunteers from around the world host them, kind of pass the baton from one person to the other.
So, okay. So say I want to be part of it. And even though I'm not late, it doesn't matter. You could do it in December if you wanted, right?
Yeah.
But say I want to write a novel and I start on November. Well, I don't start on November 1st, right? You do prep work first, right? So walk us through this process.
Well, yeah, we kind of kick off what we call our nano prep season in September and October, and we have a number of different ways to help people prepare to write a novel if they want to prepare. Some people are big planners. Some people are what we call pantsers. They just write the novel by the seat of their pants. They don't really prepare. I'm what we call a plantser. I'm in between a pantser and a planner. I try to balance both sides of that creative, process. And then November, yeah, no, we want people to write. We don't want people to really be planning their novels. It's supposed to be about the experience of writing 50,000 words in a month. So yeah, we spend the whole month encouraging people and guiding them through that process. And we have a number of wonderful authors who provide what we call Pep Talks. Cousin Calendar just sent one out this week. Last night Cousin won the National Book Award for Young People's Literature. So that was pretty special. Walter Mosley also got a distinguished, kind of lifetime award. He was recently on a webcast with us earlier in the month, providing guidance. So we reach out. We're part of this wider literary community, and I think one thing, part about it, just getting back to the community, is I've heard from a number of writers that they just feel like the whole world's writing, and so that's very galvanizing for them. It's very energizing, and I think like even though they might not even know these people, they'll see their word count posts on Twitter, and they'll it's like they get caught up in a friendly competition. And so I think that spurred a lot of people on.
So I would get up or whatever every day, whether it's before I go to sleep or I get up, I would have to write, is it 1,667 words every day? How many, or is it?
That's the average. If you average that, you would hit 50,000 in 30 days. Yeah.
So like there's no weekends off
well, people do it different ways. Some people, who are busy during the week, they really do power writing on the weekends. So they might write, 5,000 words on Saturday and Sunday or more. Yeah, everybody has a different pace, but I think it's good to kind of keep that relatively even pace of 1,700 words a day. I think that's creatively good for you. It takes most people about 2 hours to do that. So it's doable. You could do a half nano now, or maybe it was a half nano a few days ago. We're almost at the 20th. I'm just telling people you could still sign up. Just set a different goal. The main thing is to write, and the main thing is make creativity a priority in your life. I mean, I think as we as adults, oftentimes creativity falls, lower and lower on our to-do list because we've got all these obligations and things to do. And sometimes it falls off the list. So NaNoWriMo is a way to like put it up and make it number one for a month and experience that part of your life.
So just to get further into it, so I would become part of a community. Now, how am I part of it? Like, am I getting emails? Am I like, do I have to be on the Twitter feed? Like, how do I get in? What's the way that I'm inspired? Like,
yeah, you get emails from us at headquarters in Berkeley, giving you all this writing guidance that I mentioned, and trying to provide you with inspiration. But you also, if you go to the website, you go to what we call you home yourself in your region. So if you're from San Francisco, you find the San Francisco region, you sign up for it, and we have those volunteers, the municipal liaisons I mentioned. Then you're on their list, and they will tell you about writing events or gatherings in San Francisco. And so usually those are hosted in person, so they'll go to some place like the Marsh or a bookstore or a cafe, and that's where people gather to write together. This year, everything's virtually. It's like this. And that can be good too. I've gone to some virtual write-ins. They're super fun. You don't have to drive and park. They're very convenient. And I find that you can create just as much community online like this as you can in person.
It's shocking what you can do online, isn't it? Are you continuously shocked about how much you can do?
It's amazing. Yeah.
So if you went to an online one, it'd be like a gallery. You would just sit there and write, and would somebody be saying something to you? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the municipal liaisons, some of them might just be silent writing. Some of it, though, they usually do what we call word sprints, for instance, or different writing games to help people write. So they might have like a word sprint, and a word sprint is that you sit down and write as much as you can for like 5, 10, or 15 minutes, depending on how it's timed. Sometimes there will be a prompt, but it's a way to make progress in your novel. And a lot of people they have an easier time writing if they go show up with a bunch of other people, especially friends, and write together. That can be more motivating to them than coming home from work and sitting at their desk and staring at the wall, you know? So I think our municipal liaisons, they're in charge of making writing more fun, more welcoming, and then creating that sense of community that's also inspirational. Yeah. And then we have things like they have a kickoff party, really fun kickoff party to kick off the month. And at the end of the month, they have what we call a TGIO party. Thank God it's over. So everyone can get massages for their, their sore backs and their repetitive stress injuries. So, yeah.
So you said, how many people are signed up right now to do it in
So
November?
300,000 on our main site and about 100,000 kids and teens on our Young Writers Program site.
So 100,000 kids and teens are also trying to write a novel this month?
Yep.
Whoa.
And we have a bunch of teaching resources. We have a curriculum aligned to the Common Core standards. We've got workbooks, all free. We have a special website just for kids. They also have all these community functions, these forums and things like that. We have virtual classrooms on the site. So we've had a number of novelists started out writing as kids. Like I'll talk, and it's fascinating to me because I'll talk to like a teen who's done our Young Writers Program, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I've read 7 or 8 novels," and some of them. I mean, I know. There's a 20-year-old woman at Stanford. She just got a 2-book deal from HarperCollins, and she started writing with us when she was 12. And this is like fascinating to me because I was a bookish kid. I was a writer. I never even conceived of writing a novel as a teenager. I maybe wrote some short stories, but so it's fascinating to me that just like having this program is like, we're reaching kids and helping them do much bigger things than I would have imagined growing up, which is great.
So is 300,000 the same amount you had last year? Is there been any impact on numbers with COVID, or it's the same?
We're actually down a little bit with COVID. I think, I don't know if it's COVID or the election or everything. I mean, I've talked to a lot of writers who just felt overwhelmed, felt burned out, felt distracted. So we've been trying to work to get people to write, but it's a tough year. It's a tough year.
It's a tough year.
And I understand that sometimes, I think writing can provide a type of solace, a type of refuge, a type of escape, but it can also be that you just need to sit down and watch some Netflix shows and veg out, So even I've talked to a lot of professional writers, and it's kind of like they've taken the year off.
Really?
Yeah.
So what is your normal well, and you'll see a normal percentage of people that hit the 50,000 mark?
Yeah, we have a fairly steady pace of about 15% of people who will do that, which is really wild to think about. 40,000 around that. There'll be 40,000 new novels in the world as of December 1st. Not that they're going to be published, not that they're like, out there. We don't tell people that it's done. I mean, we say it's a rough draft, and so we guide them to do our revision program or to revise their novel. A lot of people are writing just for the fun of it, just to have this creative experience in our community. And then a lot of people are. Their aspiration is to get published, and we've had many, best-selling authors come through our programs.
And having written that novel in the first draft in your program?
Yeah, definitely.
Give us some examples.
Elizabeth Acevedo, who just won a National Book Award a couple of years ago, maybe. She wrote her second novel with us. Erin Morgenstern wrote The Night Circus during NaNoWriMo. Hugh Howey wrote Wool. Our local author, Matali Perkins, she also had the NaNoWriMo novel she wrote, and I'm forgetting the title of it right now, but it was also nominated for a National Book Award. Sarah Gruen's Water for Elephants, which was made into a movie. She wrote that during NaNoWriMo. Marissa Meyer wrote her Lunar Chronicles in NaNoWriMo. So a lot of different writers from different genres. Rainbow Rowell wrote Fangirl during NaNoWriMo. Yeah, just a lot. We have hundreds, maybe thousands of writers who've come through.
Wow. And what about the
Yeah.
kids? What percentage finish of the teens?
Higher, because they don't have to set 50,000 words as their word count. So we make it age appropriate. So if you're a 10-year-old, you can write, I don't know, 5,000 words if you want. So I think it's about 22 or 23% of them hit their word count goals. And what's nice with the kids is that they learn, well, adults too, but the kids especially, they learn things about like time management. They learn how to develop persistence and determination to finish a project. And we oftentimes hear from kids is once they've written a novel, like writing an 8-page research paper is a piece of cake, so they get this sense of confidence about themselves that they can do big things. And so my argument is, our education system right now emphasizes nonfiction writing, and they kind of want to get poetry and fiction writing out of the classroom more and more. But I think the way that kids learn best is through their passions and by having fun. And that's what we allow them to do with NaNoWriMo, is that they can choose the novel they want to write about. They can, leap into their imaginations and do it. And they get a sense of, they play with words, they play with stories, and they'll learn grammar much more easily as a result, because they have a sensitivity to language. They're attuned to it in a new and different way. So that leads into better nonfiction writing as well.
So, there's some similarities, it feels like, with NaNoWriMo and the Marsh, in that, we're both communities of artists. Our focus, our genre is solo performance. Yours is novel writing.
Yeah.
But both, we try to support from the youth to 80-year-olds and people who are in it for fun and creativity, and people who want to make a professional career out of it.
Yeah. That's so cool.
So how do you feel about that? That openness is kind of maybe a potentially more likely in the Bay Area, of allowing not to be, have you had any experiences where, people don't understand the breadth of it?
Yeah, some people are somehow, I don't know, threatened might not be the right word, but I think some people have questioned the value of writing a messy, rough draft. I think what's interesting is that providing access and that openness, what we're doing is that we believe that everyone's a creator, that they just need to believe in themselves as a creator and do it. And I think, unfortunately, we have a society where we've, especially in the past, but still now, some people aren't accepted as creators. They're kind of told that they're not creators, they're not invited to the table. And so, yeah, we've had some weird negative press. Like, there was one story about 10 years ago where the headline was, what was it? It was like, better yet, don't write a novel this month. And I thought that was kind of weird, because it was like telling people not to be creative, not to believe in themselves as creators, not to do something that's, fun and community oriented. And, the irony, of course, is that we're not only creating a world of writers, we're creating a world of readers, because they go together so well. So we need that, writing and literary community to support the wider community. So, we're just a small nonprofit. We're doing our best. So sometimes it feels weird to get critiqued. But I do think, like the groundbreaking thing we're doing is that we are gate crashers in a way, because we're telling everybody, like, believe in yourselves. We are meaning. We make meaning in the world as human beings through our stories. We've done it since the beginning of time, and that takes a variety of forms, everything from cave paintings to 1,000-page sagas. And that's just the way we understand ourselves. That's the way we understand other people. That's the way we're able to imagine the future. In fact, I just read this statistic recently: 75% of scientists, they said they're scientists because they loved reading science fiction when they were kids. And so science fiction opens up a type of imagination, that actually leads to things. It does change the world in very tangible ways. So I think this is all very important. Yeah.
Yeah, from our perspective, it's like you say yes to people where they're at.
Yeah.
Support people as much as you can, and watch, everybody can go as far or as not as far as their skill level and their perseverance and their talent allows them. So it does feel, quite similar in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for those of us watching who are more invested in the solo performance development than being a novelist. How does NaNoWriMo
Rimo, writing, writing.
How does it Nano's work?
NaNoWriMo solo performance. So performo. I think it'd be great for that, actually. I mean, I think I've never done a solo performance, but I think NaNoWriMo, has performative aspects to it. It is improvisational writing. I think solo performances, I know a lot of times it's about, accessing a humor to a story, but also accessing or getting over your vulnerability, getting over your fear of being on stage, your fear of saying something stupid, your fear of being embarrassed. And so I think that because NaNoWriMo is about, the premise is banish your inner editor, get your inner editor out of yourself, and then, write as much as you can. And so when I say improv, that's about saying yes and to yourself and your words, and so to write that initial draft of a monologue that might be performed on stage, you're writing it not thinking about the stage, perhaps, you're not thinking about the performance, you're thinking about the story. And again, it's like a discovery draft. So it's fine to be vulnerable, it's fine to make mistakes. You want to take creative risks, it invites that, and especially that kind of march to the finish, focusing on progress every day. You've got to try something new. If you wake up and you don't have an idea for your next 1,000 words, you got to come up with something, and that means you got to try something new, and that might be bad, but it might be wonderful. You'll find that out later. So I think it's a wonderful way to develop a first draft of something you might perform on stage, and then once you have that first draft, you work with somebody like you, or you revise it and you think about what works and how to pace things, and what might play well with the audience. But you've at least gotten over those initial obstacles, that initial performance anxiety. So I think if I would definitely do it if I was going to come up with a solo act.
And so what happens so you say you have the support after you spend your month in November. Can you talk a little bit about what happens then?
Yeah, we've got a revision program called I Wrote a Novel, Now What? This is a question we heard from people. They'd say, hey, I had a great time writing in November. What happens now? How do I revise? And so we have a whole program in January and February about revision. It's also a program about thinking about how to get published. So if you want to learn how to write a query letter, or learn how the publishing process works, or even think about self-publishing, we offer various resources and conversations about that. So yeah, it's just, and we're building that program out every year. There's more. We have webcasts with editors and agents and authors, all talking about what worked for them. Publishing is like a really complicated and scary thing, and it's really difficult. It's like a weird labyrinthian world that there's a lot of secret code that's hard to figure out, so it's very daunting, and especially if you're not a connected person, if you don't live in the city, or if you don't live in New York City. So yeah, we try to provide guidance to people, and we have this podcast that I'm actually a co-host of as well. It's called Right Minded, and so that's on every week. And I co-hosted with Brooke Warner, who's a local publisher, and we talk about, again, every writing topic under the sun. And each week we interview a featured author, and we've had a number of really wonderful authors on, people like Jacqueline Woodson and Mary Carr, and yeah, a lot of wonderful writers.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about your writing sprints and the book you wrote about that. Tell us what's coming up in a little bit. We're going to all be invited to do a 5-minute writing sprint.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about that and how that came to be and what your book is like. And then you're going to read some too, right? But tell me.
Yeah. For the word sprints, everyone should have a pen and paper nearby, or a laptop. We will do a simple one. It'll be for 5 minutes. I will give you a prompt, and basically you write as fast as you can for 5 minutes. And we'll talk a little bit about what that creative experience was like and how you can use it to write a novel. My book that you asked about, it's Pep Talks for Writers, and it's 52 pretty short essays, each one on a different topic of creativity. And its basic premise was those people who, when they finished National Novel Writing Month, they were like, what do I do? How do I write the rest of the year? And so that's where the 52 comes in. Each essay is meant to provide inspiration and guidance to, kind of develop a creative mindset and be creative all year round. Yeah.
So one a week. Is that what the 52's for? One a week?
One a week. Yep. I should remember to say that.
No, I think, some of us know that there's 52
Yeah,
in a year.
it's true. Some of us know. I do hope most people here know. Yeah.
So do you want to read a couple of your 100-word
Sure.
stories?
Yeah. So this is a strange little form because every story has to be exactly 100 words. This is what a 100-word story looks like, if you can see those. Essentially a paragraph. And I was kind of struggling with the long novel. This was about 10 years ago. And a friend of mine posted on Facebook some stories that he had published in a local literary journal, 1111. And they were each 100 words. And he'd written 100 to 100 word stories as a memoir. So there were all these like little snapshots of his life. It was almost like a collage of snapshots, or like a carousel, one of those Kodak things where you click from one snapshot to the next. And he, what I thought was marvelous about them was the way they just captured these small little moments of life, but important moments of life. So it wasn't like a normal memoir, which kind of tells a big story with a kind of very cohesive arc about something like going to war or overcoming addiction, all those kind of memoir topics. It was more about these, very important, but very kind of passing moments in life. So I started writing them just as a break from my novel. And it was fascinating because I'd trained myself almost like a long distance runner. I'd trained myself to write long. So it was super hard to write a story so short. I could never get a story down to 100 words. And so I wrote them like 150 words long. And I would tell Paul, my friend, I said, hey, I wrote this story. I got it down to 150 words. I was all proud of myself. And he was like, no. You got to get it down to 100. Once you get it down to 100, it'll be better. And I kept working on it. It was like a Rubik's Cube. You'd move one side of it and you'd put more words in, and then you have to take some words out. So it's just kind of a constant adjustment of the story. But he was right. When I got him to exactly 100 words, they were always better. And that's because I put so much attention on each word. I paid attention to everything. I think they're best when they're constructed with what's left out. So they taught me a lot about how to construct a story with hints and how to escalate things through implications and use symbols. They're almost like little prose poems in a way as well. So they kind of let me be more poetic on the page, I think. So anyway, yeah, they led to, I started this literary journal, 100-word story. It will be our 10th anniversary next year this time. And I published this book about 5 years ago. It's called Fissures. And I will read, you asked me to read 5 stories. So I picked 5 out, and these aren't the same character. There's no through line here of characters, but I did start out with a young character. So I go through each stage of life in these. So start out young, move to the teen years, and end up at death. So get ready for that. This one's called Shirley Temple. It was inspired by Mad Men, essentially. Shirley Temple. I sat at the bar, my feet swinging from a stool. Jacksonville, 1972. The adults crowded into a circular booth in the corner. Men pinched women. Women squirmed in squirmy dresses. I smelled the chlorine on my hands as I listened to cackles of laughter. My father told me I could have as many Shirley Temples as I wanted, but I drank slowly, counting to 50, before taking a single bird-like sip. The cherry bobbed slowly lower in the glass, almost dissolving like candy. I wouldn't eat it until it rested on the bottom. It's good to have rules.
Are you from Jacksonville?
No, I'm not. That was not personal. Um, I know nothing about Jacksonville, actually. I don't know that I've ever been there. Skins. If only we could go out back, like when we were kids, and smoke and fool around. Our parents at parties, ashtrays filling up with butts, rumblings of laughter. There was always the question why they wanted us to grow up to be like them. They didn't imagine we'd mingle with evil. They didn't anticipate inclinations toward torpor. We thought the husbands loved the wives and vice versa, boxer shorts and J.C. Penney bras. But we knew better, mosquitoes biting our tender skin. We knew it's best to stay out of the way, even if there is no way back. Yeah.
Wow.
And then this next one's called The Toad. And the only thing I remember about writing this at the beginning was I woke up one morning really early. I generally wake up at like 4:30 or 5 to write. And it was one of those mornings where I was like, I don't know what I want to write about. And I guess I was in between projects, and I picked up the New Yorker, and I read something about toads. I think there was a poem about a toad, and I remembered when I was growing up, there were toads everywhere in the world. There were frogs everywhere in the world. It disappeared now largely, but there'd be all these kind of flattened toads and frogs on the highway in the summer. That's how many there were, though, back in that old ecosystem that worked a little better. So this is called The Toad. The toad, flattened by a car, its arms spread out, a little like Jesus. The sun had baked it as crisp as a potato chip. Poor toad, Maria said, didn't know how to cross the road. Maybe he thought the car was a new friend, I said, rushing to greet him. Or, she said, he was puzzling how such a small thing in the distance could become so large. We spent hours in such conversations. It was nice how we never talked about what was next, who we were together, as if the toad wasn't part of every story in its way, even ours. Then this next one is called Way Station. Way Station. In Porto Umbria, Maeve rented a room from a whorish-looking landlady. There was no door, only a wispy pink curtain. Her giggling brood of daughters kept slinking in to watch her dress and brush her teeth. There was little else to do than drink each night. A feline-looking boy in front of the cantina put his arm around Maeve and said, "Come in and have a drink," letting his hand slip down to her ass. Vultures ate a dead pig in the muddy street. She found comfort in the pink lamp's dirty tassels. Sometimes any kind of touch felt good. And then this final one is called Morphine Drip. Morphine drip. It's what we remember, Dad said, as if clinging to a frayed thread tossed to a man overboard in a storm. He said something about a boy named Jim, his pants down to his ankles, his tuxedo shirt unbuttoned. Long baby hairs on smooth cheeks, frogs croaking in the woods, jinrikis under an August moon, the violet night. Outside a few parked cars, inside the ruckus of others. Never underestimate the comfort sin can provide, he said. A lifetime of bedtime stories, all to your lonesome. Skin crinkled around his eyes, his dry lips pressed feebly around a straw. So the title for a collection of short stories I have coming out in July comes from this story, the line, "All the comfort sin can provide." That's the title of my collection coming out with Black Lawrence Press in July.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So these are wonderful and they're very poetic. So if
Thank you.
if people soon are going to take their pen and paper or type, right? You can do it on your computer as well, right?
Yeah.
And do a writing sprint for 5 minutes. If people write fast, or what is the average number of words that come out in about 5 minutes?
Gosh, I don't even know. I think, so yeah, the premise is I will give you a prompt. And you don't have to write to that prompt, but just to have it there if you want it. And the premise is to write as fast as you can, so treat it like when I said improv, the whole thing with improv is to say yes and to what's ever happening on stage. And so this is saying yes and to the story in your brain. Just let your pen go. And try to literally not to take it off the paper. And so, yeah, we'll do this. And it's just I find it really interesting because I don't do this a lot with myself, but when I do it, it always gives me something really important for my story. I'm always surprised with the results. I actually should do it more. So should we do it? Are you going to do it, Stephanie?
Yeah, I'll do it, but when you're done with it.
Yeah.
So then.
So, yeah, usually we do this to help people, get their word count for their novels. For tonight's purposes, I would like people to write a 100-word story. So if you write 200 words tonight during this exercise, think about how you can edit it down to 100 words. If you write 50 words, think about how you can get another 50 words, like really, really practice that art of a 100-word story. I actually think we're taught to write more for the most part in our education. We know how to pad words into a story, but we're rarely taught how to write less. And I think the art of writing less, constraints bring out a different type of creativity. And that's why I think writing in the form is really an interesting creative exercise.
Okay, so we're going to do 5 minutes. I'm going to play some music so everybody can
right.
write away for 5 minutes. But
yeah.
Afterwards, can people put some of their text in the chat or whatever?
Yeah, I'd love to see how people's word counts, how many words they actually wrote. Let's see how that goes. If people want to share a line, either a line that you like or a line that you hate, part of NaNoWriMo is like having a sense of humor about your writing. So like I was just on Twitter before this event, and I saw people posting some of the lines that were the worst lines from their novels. I happened to think that one of those worst lines, I was like, hey, I like that one. That's not a bad line. So anyway, it's about not taking yourself so seriously and making writing fun. So have fun while you're doing this.
All right, so
we're
ready for our prompt.
Okay, so I'm going to get my clock out too. So the prompt. A lot of times writers have trouble introducing conflict into their stories. So this is going to be a very conflict-oriented prompt. And so I'll give some variations of it, but it's basically he said, she said. That's the prompt. So write he said on one line, she said on the other line. You can use names of characters. It can be Mary and Tom. Tom said, Mary said, whatever you want it to be. But just have it be two people and they're having a conversation that has both of their points of views. You can imagine it should bring out conflict in some way. So he said, she said for 5 minutes. Let's see here. I'm sorry, my eyes are bad. You ready to go? You ready, Stephanie?
I'm ready.
Was that prompt clear?
Yes, it's he said, she said.
Conflict. Yes, conflict. Okay, go. we're halfway through, 2.5 minutes. One minute left. Keep going. Fifteen seconds left. And time. How did you do, Stephanie? What did it feel like?
It felt good. At a certain point, I was like, this might be getting a little boring, my little conflict I did, but it was fine. And I was like, I'll need to turn it around. And maybe I did.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good start. I'm curious from people watching if you can put do a word count. I guess if you wrote by hand, kind of do an estimate, just like count the words across one line and then multiply it by the number of lines that you wrote to get a rough word count on your laptop or however else you wrote technologically. You might be easier to get a word count. And yeah, put it in chat here. I'd love to see. Rupa got 100 words. Congratulations, Rupa. You wrote a 100-word story. Perfect the first time around. Pretty good. How many words did you get, Stephanie? Oh, wow, 2 people. Arlo got 100 words exactly as well.
I wrote 279 words.
Wow. That's a lot. And you were writing by hand, weren't you?
No, I was typing.
You were typing. Okay, that's a lot. Penny Hackett Evans got 140. Did anyone get more than Stephanie? More than 200? I can't read the name here, but Bush C got 250. Elizabeth Weaver got 260, but Easy to Rise Later. Marilyn Hung 240. These are great. So here's what I found, Stephanie. Dennis got 97. Kelly got 148 words. Thank you, everybody, for writing. Yeah, we got Tanya, 115 words. Wanted to edit down to 100, but you can do that later. Maggie Dolan, 105. Carrie Connor, 194. One person said there was a lot of babble in my words. That's fine. You can edit out that babble, or maybe it's good babble. Who knows? But what I was going to say, Stephanie, is that I've done hundreds of these. And do you believe in writer's block? What's your take on writer's block?
I don't have to. I'm a vomiter of writing.
Yeah, you're a pro. You got 279 words, no problem. First time around. Well, there's this concept of writer's block, right? A lot of people believe in it, right? people walk around all day complaining that they have writer's block. Well, I don't believe writer's block exists. I think sometimes we're traumatized or depressed, and that's the reason we can't write. But if you sit down like we did tonight with a simple prompt and a timed exercise to write, I've never seen it where somebody couldn't write. And so this is scientific evidence against writer's block. And so it's also evidence that we have words and stories going on in our brains. They just happen. And we just need to provide an invitation and crack the door open a little bit, and they come out. So we should all trust that we have stories within us, even if they include babble. And so you write out that babble, you discover your story. You don't have to discover your story consciously. You don't have to plan it. Your story can't just arrive and happen to you on the page like that. So that's just like one way. It's a little experiment. I was going to say, Lynn, we got a lot of people who got exactly 100 words. I think that's amazing. If people feel like cutting and pasting a favorite sentence or a funny sentence or any kind of sentence, if you just want to share, feel free to put that in chat as well. And yeah, I hope people will take what you wrote and take it home and see if you can edit it into a 100-word story. One of the things I'll say about writing these 100-word stories, Stephanie, is that in our journal, we get a lot of submissions. And I think that on the downside, a lot of people think it's easy to write 100-word stories, and it is. It's easy to write 100 words, but it's hard to write a good 100-word story. It's really hard to have like a beginning and a middle and an end happen within 100 words, or to develop a character. So that's the art of it. So let's read some of these lines here. Screw you, kitten. He kicked her in the stomach. I don't know why I'm laughing. Sophie O'Shaughnessy, he said, my eyes are bad, and shot me a look I didn't recognize. Stephanie put a line in there. The two of them ended up with 3 pit bull dogs with 2 pit bull owners. Do you want to tell us the background of that?
Oh, it was my conflict was about my husband going to get his mom clothes. He decided, and he had to drive him down to her in the nursing home. And I'm saying, but we're leaving. You can't do that. And he says, well, no, it's not to security. And I ended up with, how we can't negotiate anything. And that is how that line came to be.
That's good. I don't know. I'll ask my phone. That's a good line. He wanted her to stop. She wanted him to start. I love that. I want that to be the first line of a story, actually. Or a last line. Elizabeth Weaver, I didn't buy a house with a pool for a hippopotamus. Neither did I, but what's Uncle Lois? What Uncle Lewis left us? This is funny stuff. I hope people continue to write it. I did see a couple questions in chat that I just wanted to answer. Is that all right, Stephanie?
It's fine. I just want to mention one thing, though. Our general manager, Mr. Brian, Mr. Producer, said, all of you who wrote your stories, if you edit them down to 100 words and send it to them, we will post them on our MarshStream
cool.
websites, so that
that's fun.
We can, along with your, we will archive this talk, and then we can post some of the stories with it.
Great. Well, that's great. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to Elizabeth Weaver, who put a line in the chat about Pep Talks for Writers. I'm glad that resonated with you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for letting me know that. Kristen Scheel asked a question about this year in particular. Is there any curation of the submissions that have an eye towards the historical record of this moment? So right now, not with 100-word stories, and in NaNoWriMo, we actually don't read the novels. They're just for you to write. But I do think that the lockdown, the pandemic, the sense of being closed in, 100-word stories, they are a form of constraint. And so I think they could be really interesting to use as a commentary about the pandemic. And messages, this is such a great crowd, Stephanie. Everyone's posting. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for writing. And I hope you finish the 100-word stories and send them into the Marsh.
Yeah, really, send us to marsh@themarsh.org, and just subject line 100-word story.
Cool.
And if you want your name in it, make sure you put your name. And if you don't want your name in it, you might want to say, don't put my name in it, just to make sure we don't capture it and put it there.
Yeah.
Well, this was wonderful. Can you believe it? We're right on time. It's 8:30. How well did we do this, Grant Faulkner?
You know, you only give yourself high marks in life when you're on time. It's all about the time. Who cares about what we talked about for the last hour? It's like we hit the mark at 8:30. We were done.
Exactly.
Pretty good.
We'll be done at 8:30, and people will send us their 100 words.
Yeah.
Edit. I'm not doing it because I'd have to edit out 2/3 of it. Forget it.
Well, maybe you could make a trio. You could do 300-word stories and have them each be kind of we do this 100-word stories a lot. We write a series of them. I have a story called The Filmmaker, and it's 9 100-word stories. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Grant.
Thank you.
Hope you do have some events at the Marsh, and if we can figure out about some events on Marshstream, let me know. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. This was fun, so let's do more.
Yes.
Here's taking my wife Heather to another Marsh show to celebrate our 30 years together, and maybe it'll be a Josh Kornbluth bingo night. Maybe that's what we should do.
What was your what date did you get married?
We got married. Forgetting the day, April 20th. So maybe next April 20th.
April 20th. There you go. There you go. We'll celebrate online, digitally, or in person.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, we have Thanksgiving next weekend. We're not doing Stephanie's Marsh stream, but the following week, come back from Mark McGoldrick. It's going to be hopefully just as good and on time as this interview was with Grant Faulkner.
Yeah, is anyone more on time than me?
Who could it be? And make a tip, support the artists, support Marshstream. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Come back and see our shows, and see you in 2 weeks, but we'll be back tomorrow night at Marshstream. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, everyone. It was fun. Bye-bye.
It happens, right? You're on your way to a very important meeting.
The right one, and finally, I turn to the place I always turn when I'm utterly lost and desperate.
Livelier. Can you do something a bit livelier? Of course I can.
We need to talk to you right now. We just need a momento. You can do your homework later.
I composed this song in prison. It sounds.
Walking down the street, going to the theater. I mean, I had many breakfasts at Venus, and then I
read a little excerpt from it right now.
Excerpt. I love that word. Excerpt.
And she would call me like from a self-help home. She'd go, "They have their Sabbath on Fridays. Did you know that?"
2, 3, 4. And up.
Your ability to be online, pre-check how you look on camera, and also check for glasses. You see how much glare is on that?
Know that we are one.
It sounds like hell, if you know what I mean. But for some reason, we call it living the dream.
Okay, 069, and I don't want any of your smart aleck sex talk that I usually get when I get 069.